It's why stats require context. It's why analytics on their own isn't just a big spreadsheet of information. It's the interpretation of the data. We're going to start the show today with some of what Kliff had to say at his press conference as he and Jaden Daniels prepare for the Detroit Lions on Sunday. And I thought this was a very interesting quote from the Commanders' offensive coordinator about a topic that is, I think, hotly debated within NFL circles, the value of the run game and what actually should be happening over the course of a game to manage a game, the value of it. And there's a lot of folks in the analytics kind of world that are just like pass the ball pretty much all the time. Like running the ball is a bit of a waste of a down. And if you look at things like EPA per play, like it's correct. If you have an estimated points added, which is what EPA stands for, and you look at run plays versus pass plays, every time you pass the ball, the EPA is higher. Every time we pass the ball, we estimated add more points to the scoreboard versus the value of running the football. But we talked about this quite a bit last year with Eric Bieniemy, where there is actually a breaking point where that doesn't become true. You can't just say passing is more valuable than running, so don't do any running at all. Because there is a point where your total EPA is going to be maximal, where the run is used enough to make sure that the pass number stays high. Because if you never run the football, then teams can sit on your pass stuff and your pass value number comes down. Your goal isn't to have the highest possible pass or the lowest or the highest possible run. It's to have the highest possible combination of the two and then balance that out over the number of each that you call. And making teams respect running the football, not to mention what it does for your defense and keeping teams, for instance, like the Tampa Bay Bucks, off the field. There's value in that. Your estimated points added doesn't necessarily account for, oh, hey, this 0-yard run was added or actually took away points on the board because you're now in a 2nd and 10, but at least it took 40 seconds off the clock, and that's 40 seconds that Baker Mayfield doesn't have to work with or Jared Goff and company don't have to work with this weekend. So Kingsbury was asked today about staying committed to the run game, despite the fact that on Sunday it wasn't very good.
Yeah, it's helped me having a defensive head coach, I can tell you that much, because he lets it be known we need to run the football at times that I would maybe in my previous life be airing it out. But we're going to do whatever it takes to win, and we have good backs, and we've had a great scheme throughout the year. We've faced some good fronts. I mean, those two guys inside there are as good as anybody we played against all year at Tampa, and the linebackers are tremendous players. So it was a challenge. Todd Bowles is one of the best defensive minds in the league and has been for a long time. So overall, it was a challenge, and we just kept plugging away at it, and Jaden made some plays with his feet that helped us out. But I really, having DQ and just him mentoring me in a way, if you will, just about sticking to the run game, how it affects the defense, seeing it from that perspective has been good for me.
And I think that is 100% valid. I think there are defensive coaches who obviously way overdo it. And I think the previous iterations of NFL offenses probably way overdo this. But there's just an undeniable truth to what they're saying. I mean, look at the best teams in the league the last bunch of years. The Niners have been the best team in the NFC the past, 5-6 years? Dominant running team. The team that has flirted with upsetting them at times, the Philadelphia Eagles, have been a good running team even before they got Saquon Barkley. The Detroit Lions, they run the mess out of the football. And if you can do that and you control the game, it opens up bigger potential for chunk plays, let's say like 10 to 15 yards in that intermediate area because linebackers are cheating up to try to stop the run, and there's a schematic element to it. But also your big explosive plays down the field because you get in these, hey, we ran the football effectively on first down. Okay, now it's 2nd and 4. Well, on 2nd and 4, I have my entire playbook open. On 2nd and 10, I'm just trying to get 5 yards so I can get to 3rd and 5 and keep it manageable. I'm not going to take a huge, big, low propensity, low success rate shot down the field on 2nd and 10 likely because, one, that is a huge risk of losing yardage, and because it's a long developing play by nature. Like unless it's a fade ball, and you're not going to get the coverages on a second and long that invite those. You're going to get those on like third and short, man-to-man. We got to make sure we have resources everywhere, whatever. Like, okay, now we get our fade ball to the outside where it's a 3-step drop and a deep throw. But most of the time, you're not going to get those kind of coverages. You're going to get your zone mixes and things like that on a 2nd and 10 that it really is just kind of dedicated to keeping everything underneath and making sure that you don't pick up a chunk play and steal the first down out of a bad down in distance. So you have the schematic element and the risk element of, okay, now we have to drop back against a pass rush that might now make us 3rd and 18, and that's terrible. And if it's incomplete, then I'm in 3rd and 10, and that's terrible for me. So I'm just going to try to, quick game, something underneath, and can I get it to 3rd and manageable? Versus it's 2nd and 4, okay, yeah, if I take a sack, like that's going to suck. But if I get, if it's an incomplete pass down the field, okay, 3rd and 4, we can live with that. So I think that element of it kind of helps explain it. And if you look at the stats from over the weekend, look, man, Commanders' rush game, I don't think I have to tell anybody, was real bad this weekend. Rush or expected EPA per rush. The Commanders running back, Brian Robinson, who had the most carries in the game, had a minus 4.7 total EPA. So on Brian Robinson's carries, allegedly, the Commanders, according to the EPA formula, lost nearly 5 points. So if you're an offensive coordinator, it'd be really easy to get away from that. Jeremy McNichols had just 1 carry. His was a minus 0.3. Let's see. Where is Eckler's in here somewhere? Austin Eckler. Jaden, his rushing attempts were minus EPA, which is actually pretty rare for him because often he scrambles and picks up first downs, which are huge point adders. But Eckler, it's because I need to go to the next page. Eckler, I think, actually had a decent day. His EPA in total was plus 1.1. So his EPA per rush, he had 8 attempts, whatever. It's like 0.3 points. Compared to, if we go to the passing stats from the weekend and say, hey, every time Jaden Daniels dropped back, how much was that worth? His EPA per drop back was 0.25 every drop back. So you're scoring every time Jaden Daniels drops back 0.25 point. And so for Dan Quinn to be like, look, I know that is part of the equation here, but I need you to keep running it. I need you to find ways because we need this clock to run, is not only how they won the Tampa game, where all of a sudden they don't punt. They have 35 minutes time of possession. They dominate in other areas that don't necessarily just correlate with one stat. That's why stats require context. It's why analytics on their own isn't just a big spreadsheet of information. It's the interpretation of the data. You have all these other things that not only won them the game against Tampa, but are necessary to win against Detroit. Because if you get in a shootout against Detroit, I don't think you're going to win. I think Detroit has more weapons, more options, and the Commanders' defense has given up more stuff. Even everyone loves to talk about how injured Detroit is, but have they actually played bad? No, they haven't. So watching this weekend and watching how Kliff and Dan together manage this game, I think is really, really interesting as not just a subplot, perhaps the plot of the game. Because for as much as we talk about, and by we, I mean specifically, I on this show and Logan and I on Take Command, we talk about these game scripts. We talk about game flow. This is how you manage it. Saying like, hey, we want to possess the ball. Okay, that's really easy, but how do you go about it? It's finding things that can both move you forward because, okay, you ran the ball 3 times nowhere. That's 3 and out. You didn't actually, sure, it's better than 3 incomplete passes and going 3 and out. You wasted, a minute 40 off the clock versus, 18 seconds. Cool. That's better. But how do you find things that both keep the clock moving and move you forward? And whether it's the screen game, whether it's the right runs at the right times, whether it is quarterback run game, whether it's the RPO game. Kliff did a masterful job of that against Tampa, and it set them up to obviously go down and win that game late with Jaden and company leading that final drive to set up the doink, to set up the win and this matchup against Detroit this weekend.
What's up, kiddos? It's your boy Clinton Yates from ESPN. It's the Hoffman Show on the Team 980. Tell your mama I said what's up.